We are almost done with our cell phone box. We've got a couple more additions we need to make to it. And then I'm going to talk about some power that we have within the layers and organizing the layers palette in a way to give you some different looks at what we're piecing together. So let's go ahead. We're looking at the side panel here, and typically and again, not getting into the art pieces of this, but when you look at a piece that you want to make look 3D as opposed to 2D, shading becomes important as well. The vanishing point has worked well for us, but sometimes taking a different approach to a certain part of the box will help it pop a little bit more in terms of making it look 3D. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the side panel that we're looking at right here, and we're going to make that a little bit darker, just the side panel. So we're going to use what's called an adjustment layer. And an adjustment layer allows us to put a thin layer over the top of the whole image and pretty much change some lighting around that layer without screwing up the other layers underneath. So let's go ahead and do that. We are going to let's make sure we're on the special offer layer. We're about to add a layer, so it's no biggie there, but we're going to grab the rectangular selection tool. Actually, you know what? Let's go the polygonal lasso tool, because it isn't going to be a rectangle. I've got some lines on here that will not allow me to use a rectangular. I'm going to zoom in just because just so that I can kind of see the edge of the box. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag a rectangular selection around what I think would be the side of the box. I'm going to go down there, over, down. Yeah, it's going to be a little off. You know what I'm going to do? Double click and I'm going to go to selection, say deselect. Hard to see the edge on this piece right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down this side of the box first, considering I can see the edge a whole lot cleaner. I'm going to cut over to the corner. That way when I go up, it'll be a lot easier to look at. And I'm going to close off the polygonal piece. So I've got basically my polygon right there, and I'm going to go up to layer, and I'm going to say new adjustment layer. And the piece that we want to work with is the levels, new adjustment layer, levels. I click on that, and you'll notice it saying what you want a new layer. So let's name it shadow. The rest is fine. We can click OK there. Click OK. And you've got this adjustment box that comes up, this adjustment menu that comes up. Again, if you don't see it, just go into the window folder. But once you're done a new layer, it should come up. But if you don't see it, go to the windows and pull up adjustments, and it'll come up. And we're going to change something about that one adjustments layer. We are going to slide the back end of that, which is at 255, down to 210, or I can go in here and I can type in 210. You'll notice as you pull on these, you'll notice just the polygonal area that you've selected changes its adjustment phase. So I've just slide on that. Let me pump 210 back into that. So we're basically making the side panel just a little bit darker without changing anything else. So once I've got that done, I can go ahead and shut down the adjustments panel, pull up my layers box, and let's just take a look over here to see what this adjustment layer does. Here's the adjustment piece of it, but if you notice, there's a mask around the top, which basically only includes the selection that you made with your polygonal lasso tool. I can turn this on or off like every other layer. Let's say I don't like it darker, so I just click that layer off, and it goes back to its original color. Turn it back on, and it comes right back on. So kind of a neat effect. It also, the other thing it truly does is give you a more defined edge on the front left side of that box. So pretty good idea to be able to do that. I'm going to move that panel back in over here. So I got my layers back. Okay, so we've got a little bit darker box. The next step we're going to do is take you back a little bit. Why are we doing all this to a box? And if you need some kind of frame of reference as to why this is important and why the things that we're talking about are very important, consider yourself working at a design agency. and you're creating this box look for obviously this cell phone company. You come in, you've created this thing. The company wants to see, and 9 times out of 10, I will tell you, the companies that want to see design pieces want to see numerous renditions of the same thing because they want options in order to figure out which one they want to pick. Well, here's one option for you. We've done this whole entire assignment and we haven't even touched this full art box. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow them to open up this file, and with the click of a button, we'll allow this box to change many different things about it. So the idea would be you would come in with this box image and you would say, okay, here's one rendition of it. And then you would flip a button and then there would be a whole other rendition of it. So that's done with layer comps. And what layer comps allow you to do is to turn on or off certain layers and then hold those pieces so you can just toggle between those. So an example might be maybe they don't like the label up above and they want to see the box without the label up above. You could give them a layer comp for that. They like the black, but they don't like the color of the front. You could put on a whole different label, put it in a layer comp. You get the idea. So let's get started. We're actually going to make 2 layer comps. One layer comp is going to be using the black box right here, which is the black color. And then the other layer comp is going to be using this full art piece. If I turn that on, that's the piece that we're going to use for the other layer comp. So let's make sure we got our layer comp panel up. I'm going to go out to Window, and you got your layer comps menu. There's your layer comp. So what we have currently is we've got all these layers associated with this black box. So before you create a layer comp, you need to make sure your layers are listed in the way they should be. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say, okay, this is one rendition that we want to save. I'm going to go ahead and click Create New Layer Comp. And this layer comp is going to be called the black box. And I'm going to come down here and I don't know, I'll put in a comment, black box background full image. If I could type, it would be a miracle. So I click OK. You'll notice there's a layer comp right there, black box. So now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to come back into the layers and I'm going to turn off the black box. My full art's way too high. I'm going to pull that down here. And I'm going to turn on the full art instead. And you'll notice what happened. There's the full art piece is on it, but there's no black around the edges anymore. So it kind of blended pretty well with the rest of the box. So the minute I've got my layers structured the way I want them, and maybe, no, we'll keep it just like that. And I make a brand new comp. So I click on Create New Layer Comp, and this is going to be called Full Art Comp, let's just say. And again, you can name these things anything. This is box with full art color. Comment. Click OK. So I've got 2 layer comps. And watch what happens as I click back and forth from these layer comps. Let's say, so you're coming in, you're going to your client, and you're saying we've got 2 renditions of this. We got a black box comp, so if you like that, that's good. And we've got a full art box, or a full color, actually it is full art too, but a full color box that you like. I could have gone through and turned off the labels of the top and all this other stuff with the full art comp. But you get the idea. So these layer comps are pretty important. You can give an image a couple of different looks just by using layer comps. Okay, I think we're winding up. We're gonna talk about flattening real quick, but we're gonna make some groupings first. So in essence, let me just kind of slide this layer comps menu down here if I can. Actually, let's pop that right up into there. So I get layer comps. Get rid of the notes. Click off on the notes. I don't need the notes. So now my layer comps palette is in with my layers palette. Let's go back to the layers palette. And you can group these layers into meaningful things. I'm going to grab the special offer. I'm going to grab the side box copy, holding down the control key, and the ZXTEL logo. So those 3 pieces will constitute a grouping. Once I've selected all 3 of these layers, if you look up in your layers palette, let me drag this over. It's probably a little bit easy. Drag the layers palette right onto the middle. There is a menu bar to the right next to where the word layers is, and my screen I'll highlight it too. But if I click on that menu bar, you get a whole new menu of different things. Now some of these will look familiar. You got merge layers, merge visible, flatten image. Those look familiar. Animation we won't even talk about. Clipping mask is there as well. So sometimes you'll be able to right click on these layers and get some of these pieces. Then other times you'll have to go up to that menu. So if I just right click, I don't get any of the grouping options here. So a little tricky. So you have to get to that menu to get some of these grouping options. So I'm going to say new group from layers. And it says, okay, what name do you want to give it? And we are going to type in box type, which means a type on the box. And I click OK. You'll notice, very similar to a PC or even a Mac system, it's going to put those in a folder called box type. So this is just for organizational purposes. I'm going to take the shadow. Let's see what else. We can make another group type here. Let's take the shadow and the shape art and the full art. So I'm going to control click the shape art and the full art. And we're going to call this one box artwork. So I click in there, click on my sub menu, new group from layers, and we'll say box artwork. Click OK. So I basically have two different types of layer comps, or not layer comps, but layer groupings. And depending upon what I want to see, I can either turn this on or turn it off. Let's take the full art. Let me go back to the black box, turn that on. I'm still with my comping. But you'll notice it still affects the direction in which you're moving around in. So the types of the layers that are in these groupings will affect, depending upon where you look from there. Ooh, I just did something. Let me step back. I combined two types right there. So you can actually take these layers and group these layers exactly how you want them. All right. I'm going to make sure I keep my, let's do this, grab that grouping down. Let's make sure the type is above the artwork, so therefore we can still see exactly what's going on. So I've got a couple of groupings in there as well. So you can manage your layers accordingly from there. We are rounding it down, and the last piece I'm going to show you, which quite honestly we've done in the past already, it's called flattening. I'm going to look down here in the image, right down here at the corner at the bottom. You'll see two numbers. I've talked about these in the past, but we'll review them. You got two numbers down here. One says 5.01 meg, and then you got a slash, and you got 35.1 meg. The 35.1 meg is the size of this picture currently with all of the layer pieces intact. The 5.01 meg would be the image if you flatten the whole thing. Discussed it before, I'll say it again. If you flatten an image and save it, that's not a good idea. Only until you are completed with the image. When you flatten an image, it gets rid of all of the layer information. Once you save it, you've just kicked out the idea that you can step backward at any moment in time. So there's a big issue there. So before you flatten an image, make sure you're ready to be done. In this particular case, I would save this image as both a Photoshop file, then to continue to have the layer information, then flatten it to save as a JPEG. Because let's say I wanted to put this out on a web page, I would never try to put a 35 megabyte image on a web page. It would be way too long to download. So I'm going to want to flatten it at some point and make it a JPEG and put it out as a 5 meg image. A lot better compression ratio. Not going to flatten because quite honestly you want to keep it as a Photoshop file. All right, we've got our box. In your lab, you're probably going to be looking at a serial box doing the same exact types of things as we did in this particular piece. But we've been able to create a nice 3D effect on a 2D layer.